Okay, so we'll start off with some introductions, just so that you know who we are, and we can introduce ourselves. So I'll just introduce myself. My name is Rachel, and I am one of the student recruitment officers here at St Mary's University, our Strawberry Hill campus based in Twickenham in London. So I work with lots of colleges and schools, giving information, advice and guidance, and to anyone really that's thinking about going on to higher education and university. So I think it's just important to point out that I'm not here to tell you you have to go to university or you have to study at St Mary's. It's very much just about me giving you the information so that you can make a really informed decision about what you want to do. So I'm joined by my lovely colleague Meg and one of our current students and student ambassadors, Caoimhe. So I'm going to hand over to Meg to introduce herself.
Perfect, thank you, Rachel. Yeah, I'm Meg and I do a very similar role to Rachel, except I mainly work with students in the UK. I have been at St Mary's since 2014, as I also studied at St Mary's, did my undergraduate in history and then a postgraduate in history. So I haven't managed to leave St Mary's, but if you have any questions about, Strawberry Hill at all, just let me know.
And hi, my name is Caoimhe. I'm in third year at St Mary's studying primary education with QTS. So I'm trained to be a primary school teacher and I'm in my final year. So I moved over straight after my leaving cert in Ireland and I've loved every minute of it. So please don't hesitate to ask me any questions at all. And I'm happy to help. So,
Yeah, thank you so much, Meg. Thank you, Caoimhe. So today's session is going to cover kind of a range of topics. So we're going to firstly start off by talking about St Mary's Strawberry Hill campus itself. You can learn a little bit more about the university. We're then going to move on to talking about student life, so what it's like to actually be a student at St Mary's. And you'll have lots of opportunities to ask Caoimhe questions as a current student. And obviously Meg did study at St Mary's too, and so she'll be able to answer any questions that you might have as well. And then we'll continue by talking about what it's actually like to be a student in London. And then finally looking at how are you actually going to be able to apply and the sort of student finance situation as well. So I'm going to now hand over to Meg for the first part of the session. And again, please, if you do have any questions, just pop them in the chat.
Perfect. Yeah, as Rachel said, any questions about St Mary's in general, as I'm talking, pop them in the chat box. And at the end of my section here, I can quickly see if there's any questions I can answer. So just to start off with, if I can move this, amazing. So St Mary's has about 5,000 students. Now, to put that into comparison with other universities, we're quite small in that sense. So a university like Manchester has 47,000 students. So St Mary's is quite small, which I really enjoyed when I studied at St Mary's. It meant that my lecturers knew me by name and my classes weren't too big. So something to consider when you're deciding what university you want to go to is what sort of environment do you want to be in? Are you someone that does better in smaller classrooms where that support is more frequent? Or do you want to go to a bigger university where you are, surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of different people? St Mary's offers a fantastic campus experience. I will talk more about the campus just in a minute, but everything's on site here at St Mary's, from your refectory, which is where we eat, to accommodation, to your classrooms, to the sports facilities. So it's really easy to navigate. And for me, I really wanted to be at a campus university rather than a city university, because it meant that I didn't have to travel around different sites, and I kind of got that community feel of having everything in one place, which I really liked. And when I grew up watching all those movies like American universities where everything's together, it just gave me that vibe. So I really liked that. In London, you have the best of both worlds as well. We're based in Southwest London, which is about 30 minutes from London Waterloo by train. So it means that you're surrounded by the lovely leafy area of Teddington and Twickenham, Strawberry Hill. So you have like Richmond Park and Bushy Park, but then you can go into London if you want to see a West End show or you want to go out for the night. So I think London offers something for everyone, no matter what your hobbies or interests are, which is really, really great. We were established in 1850. We were originally founded as a teaching college. So if you're thinking of doing primary education at St Mary's, we have an incredible teaching institute. We have been rated outstanding by Ofsted since 2011. So that's twice in that period of time, which is incredible. And I know that Caoimhe might be able to talk more about that as well. We are one of the safest boroughs in London. I know that like moving away from home can be really scary, especially when you're moving to a big city like London. But Richmond upon Thames is actually the second safest in London, and that's only second to Kingston upon Thames, which is right next door to us. So that's not bad at all. We have excellent facilities. So as I've mentioned, everything is on one site at St Mary's, but we are known a lot for our sport. So if you have heard of Strawberry Hill, it might be through either teaching or it might be about sport as well. And I'll talk more about the different alumni that we have in our sporting area at St Mary's in just a moment. And that will come into our sporting excellence as well. We do have like two buildings off of campus. So one's called the Naylor Library. So we do have some primary education resources down there and also a PhD centre, but you might not need to worry about that just yet. And then we do have Teddington Lock. Again, I'll show you an aerial image of Teddington Lock and what happens there shortly. And finally, we do have a Catholic ethos on campus, but of course we accept students of all faith or no faith. But you do get to graduate in like Westminster Cathedral, which is really cool. The ceremony is amazing, so that's fantastic. So at St Mary's, we have 42 undergraduate degree programs available. We have 19 joint honour pathways, although that might change by the time in September. 58 programs available at postgraduate and 6 foundation degree programs. So joint honour pathways is where you study 2 degrees together. So you do half of one and half of the other. So you might do history and you might do English. So you might do 50% of that and 50% of the other. Postgraduate is after undergraduate. So again, unless you're thinking of doing postgraduate study in September, don't worry too much about that. But as I said, I did like a postgraduate in history. So if you do want to stay at St Mary's after your undergraduate, we have loads of available options for you. And 6 foundation degree programs. So foundation degree programs aren't 3 years, they're like 2 years or 1 year, which you can top up. So if you're not sure if you want to do a full 3 years, but you just want a smaller qualification, we do have that option. We also do what's called a foundation year that's attached to your 3-year course. So if you don't meet the grades required, some of our courses do allow you to come in and do 1 year of study skills and practicing, getting used to university life. And you have the same university experience as any other fresher or any other first year. That's a really good option that you should consider. And if you want any more information on that, please do let us know. And just what I said with the joint honours, all of our website has the most up-to-date information about joint honours. So any questions about that, again, just let us know. So our first faculty is called Sport, Allied Health and Performance Science. And here are just some of the different degrees that you can study in this faculty. As you can see, a lot of them are science-based, sports science-based. So you could do nutrition or sport and exercise nutrition. The difference being that nutrition would cover everything generally and not just sport or athletes and what they eat. Strength and conditioning, sport and exercise science. I always say that sport and exercise science is a good one to consider if you're not sure which degree you want to do in this area, because a lot of the modules cover like different things in all these different degrees. So you can do everything from biomechanics, but then you can still go on to teach if you want to with that degree. So that's a good one to look at if you're not sure what you want to study in the sporting area at St Mary's. I mentioned foundation degrees, so here's one, Chelsea FC Foundation Football Coaching. So our students can go and study at, I always forget the Chelsea home ground, but I think it's Stamford Bridge. So you can go there and study, which is really cool. So any questions about that, let me know. Acting BA and technical theatre. Again, we have such an amazing drama school at St Mary's and a massive drama society as well. Some recent alumni from acting, I don't know if you will know him, Tom Grennan. He was nominated for 2 Brit Awards. He studied performing arts at St Mary's. And like I said, we're really close to the West End, and there's just so many different theatres in the local area around St Mary's, from the Orange Tree Theatre, which you might have heard of, or in Kingston as well. So there's lots to do if you do want to do acting at St Mary's. Business Law and Society. So we have so many different pathways in this area at St Mary's. You can do business management in entrepreneurship, international business management, so many other ones as well, politics, law, criminology and sociology, and communication pathways and marketing pathways. Again, there's just different variations of what you can do in that area. This is the area that I studied in at St Mary's, which is liberal arts and theology. I think the main notable degree here is liberal arts. Similar to the advice I gave about the sport degrees, if you're not sure which humanities subject you love the most, you can do a liberal arts degree and you can pick modules from each of those different areas. So you could do a bit of history, English, creative media, creative writing, and so forth. So this is a really good one to look at, again, if you're not sure what area you are most interested in. It gives you a lot of flexibility. And actually, while I'm on this, it's worth saying that if you did start a history degree and you did your first year, but you weren't sure, and you might want to just swap to like English or whatever, like as long as you pass your first year, those options, and that is always available to discuss with our registry teams and our admissions teams. And finally, the Institute of Education, so Primary Education QTS, which is Qualified Teacher Status, and Education Studies as well. So Education Studies has been more broad. You might not want to go in and teach, or you might want to teach PGCE after. But that's a great one if you're more into like the sociology of education, for example. And then we also do foundation year degrees, which is early years education and education in context. Some of our foundation degrees in the Institute of Education do require that you have some sort of experience in teaching in the teaching field. But again, let us know if you're interested in those areas and we can answer any of your questions there. Some of you may not have been able to visit Strawberry Hill yet, so I'm just going to show you a 1-minute video, which is an aerial view of our campus, and then I'll talk more about that in just a second. There's no like sound and there's music, but if you can't hear it, don't worry, no one's speaking within the video. Amazing. So yeah, that was our Strawberry Hill campus. If you haven't yet been able to visit us, it's 36 acres of land. And as I said, most things, pretty much everything is on this site. So in the middle, you can see our Sir Mo Farah Olympic Standard Athletics track. Sir Mo did study with us at St Mary's, and it goes into the idea that everything at St Mary's is world class in terms of our sporting facilities. We've also hosted athletes such as Andy Murray. He had, after his hip operation, he used our facilities here for that. During the Rugby World Cup, we've had the All Blacks, the Springboks, and the Wallabies train on site. For the Commonwealth Games, we've had athletes here. And of course, for the 2012 Olympics, when they were hosted in London, our facilities were used by athletes all over the globe, which is incredible. At the back here, I don't know if you can see it, there's a white building towards the top north of the campus. That's Strawberry Hill House, which is gorgeous. It's a Gothic building, and it inspired Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which is really cool. And the son of the first Prime Minister in Britain owned that building as well. So there's a lot of history and a lot of Gothic stuff there if you are interested in studying English literature or creative writing, or are just interested in history in general. And in the middle, like below where this inconveniently placed sign Strawberry Hill campus is, that's where all our sports stuff is. At the back behind the track is our halls of accommodation, and there are some more halls of accommodation on the left-hand side as well, where all their teaching spaces are. So everything's quite compact, and it's just a gorgeous place to be on site. And as you can see, the River Thames runs behind and parallel to the university, which takes you up to Twickenham and down to Teddington as well. And this is Teddington Lock campus, which I mentioned earlier. So if you're into sport, or you're part of a club or society that practices sport, or you're taking part in varsity, which is against Brunel, which is another local university here, which is our main competitor. A lot of this might take place at Teddington Lock campus, which is literally a 10-minute walk from Strawberry Hill. And yeah, if you're doing like physical education as well, you might have lessons down here too. So it's just a really nice extra space to have, as we do a lot of sport here. Quickly, I'm going to run off some stats for you here, but I guess my main thing to say to you is when you're looking at university statistics, look at the ones that say how happy students are. I think that's the most important thing. So for example, we were second in London and 17th nationally for overall student satisfaction. And I think that's really important to look at. Don't just look at, the 1 to 100 and whatever it is on the league tables is where the university is. Break that down into how happy are the students? How highly does your specific course rate on those league tables? So we were first in London for learning opportunities as well, and we are above the sector average for course satisfaction in 14 of the 18 subjects areas that we offer at St Mary's. And I think that's amazing, and I would agree with those statistics as a St Mary's student myself, and the reason why I brought Caoimhe along today is so that she can also talk about her experience, because that's the most important thing really. As I've mentioned this a lot, but yeah, we're top 4 in the UK for our sports scene. And here are just some of our alumni. Up there is Mo Farah and Joe Wicks. You might know Joe Wicks. He did all the stuff during the COVID lockdown, did PE lessons on YouTube and so forth, and he studied nutrition. And last but not least, 96 of our graduates are in employment, vocation, or further study within 15 months, which is really good. Basically, that statistic means that they were either in employment, or they went abroad to do something, or they went and did a master's or a PhD. So they're physically doing something post their degree. And 96 is a really high number when you look at those statistics in comparison to other institutions. And during your time at St Mary's, you can do work placement modules as well to help boost your CV. So no matter what course you're doing, you can apply to do a work placement module or a work placement year with a business or sector in London, which is really cool. Or you can go abroad to the USA or Australia as well. So are there any questions so far before I hand over to Rachel? That was quite a whistle-stop tour of St Mary's, but hopefully it kind of gives you the top level information about St Mary's if you were unsure before. So I'm just going to have a look in the Q&A box and see if there are any questions. So firstly, will there be a recording of this live session? There will be, and I'm sure Rachel can let us know at the end of the session where you can find that. If you applied for a foundation course because your grades last year weren't good, but this year they've got higher, can you just start an undergraduate course, or do you have to reapply? That's a really good question, and one that I would definitely direct to our admissions team. What they do in these sort of circumstances is they will look at your application on a case-by-case basis. So if you meet the grades this year, you might be able to get in if you meet the prerequisites. But I can type an answer to you just now about who to get in touch with that question. Am I qualified as a PE teacher in Ireland with the PE course? I will let Rachel answer that question for you, as she is the Ireland expert. And just checking the chat. Okay, same question. Amazing. Rachel, I'll hand over to you now, if that's okay.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Meg. And yeah, it definitely was a whistle-stop tour. And I hope it just gave you a real flavour of what it is like, what St Mary's campus is like, and we're giving you a little bit more of a better understanding of the university. But to answer the question in the chat, so about the PE degree. So the PE degree doesn't lead directly to a teacher training qualification, but you can go on to a PGCE in physical education, which would qualify you to be a PE teacher. What I'm going to do is I'm also going to post an email address in the chat box for the email of our PGCE and teaching staff at St Mary's University, who will be able to give you, the solid sort of information about maybe any extra qualifications you might need to do and to qualify as a PE teacher in Ireland. So I'll post that in the chat box at the end of today's presentation, just so you can direct that question to them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move swiftly on to the student life section of the presentation. And after that, we're going to go to a Q&A with Caoimhe. So any other questions you might have, we'll be able to direct towards Caoimhe as well. So bear with me while I share my screen. I'll just double check. Can you see that, Megan, Caoimhe? Fantastic. Okay, so I'm just going to run through a little bit of student life. So to kick things off, you might have already applied to go to university, or you might be having a look at different courses And these are some of the maybe random letters that you might have seen at the end of the kind of course titles. So I remember when I was thinking about going to university and I had no idea what these letters meant. But essentially they refer to the awards that you would be awarded once you'd finished your degree. So the BSc stands for Bachelor of Science, the A stands for Bachelor of Arts, and the LLB stands for Bachelor of Laws. And there are other types of qualification that you can get, but these are some of the most common ones. So if you're going to study quite a science-based degree, such as, biology, chemistry, straight science, you would be awarded a Bachelor of Science. And things as well like physical geography would be a Bachelor of Science, and some criminology courses as well, depending on if there is a sort of scientific research element in there. But then you've also got your Bachelor of Arts. So if you're going to study subjects such as history, or you're going to do acting, you would be awarded a Bachelor of Arts. And finally, if you're going to study law, you'll be awarded an LLB, so Bachelor of Laws. And I just think it's always good to clear that up, because I was definitely confused when I was looking at university courses. So I just want to talk about how studying at university is very different to studying at college or studying at school or sixth form. So one of the first things I want to touch upon is just how the academic side of things is different. So kind of drawing upon what Meg mentioned earlier, you get to study either one course or two courses, depending upon whether you do a joint honours or not. So when you do that, sort of 50% of one course, 50% of another, maybe something like criminology and sociology would be a joint honours. But the kind of point I'm trying to make is that you get to study something that you really love and that you really enjoy, and you get to be taught by the experts. So the people that are teaching you, they're not just teaching, they're researching, they're writing the textbooks, they're on the news when something within their field happens. So it's really cool to be taught by those sort of people that are at the forefront of what they're doing. And I think another kind of final thing to touch upon is just kind of the learning style. So rather than having classes, you'll have lectures and seminars. So in a lecture, you'll be sitting in kind of a big hall or big lecture theatre, and you're listening to your lecturer, you're absorbing the information. Then you might go away and do some independent research. And finally, you'd have a seminar, which would be hosted by the lecturer, but you'd be with a smaller group of students. And you would sort of discuss the content from the lecture, as well as what you'd learn from your independent study. So you kind of build that independence while you're at university. You might be doing presentations and group work as well. So the academic side of things is quite different. And time management is important, because obviously you are juggling your academic life with your social life, and potentially also with a part-time job, which is something we'll talk a little bit with Caoimhe about later. Because as I said, Caoimhe is one of our student ambassadors, and she is working, and this is currently paid work for Caoimhe. And so it's great to find out how you can kind of manage that around your studies as well. And obviously independence. So this might be the first time you're living away from home. So you're managing your own finances, budgeting, doing your own laundry. You kind of get to build an independent life, try new experiences and meet new people. And obviously that comes into the social side of things as well. There are tons of opportunities to meet new people, whether that be through your course and people you're living with, or sports clubs and societies, which is something I'm going to talk a little bit about in a minute. So the Students' Union, some of you might have heard of this, some of you might not, but essentially every university has a Students' Union, and although it's based at the university, it's a separate body from the uni, and it's run by students. So every year there are annual elections to pick a president or vice president of the Students' Union, and they are there to represent you, so to represent the students. So if you have any sort of academic or welfare related issues, they are there to support you. They also coordinate campaigns to kind of promote positive change at the university, and they run all of these sort of social events. So one of the big social events that they run is Welcome Week. So this is kind of your introduction to student life. So let's say you've decided, yep, I want to go to university, I want to go to St Mary's, and you'll have Welcome Week. So there'll be a ton of daytime and evening activities that help you meet sort of other like-minded people before you've even started your lectures. So you can sort of see on the left-hand side of the screen there that we had on campus, we had a outdoor cinema. We also had a climbing wall, a petting zoo. I turned up to work, there was a goat outside of my office. It was weird, but I liked it. And things like paddleboarding as well. And so sort of a ton of different activities to get involved in when you first start to help you make friends and meet new people. You'll also have Freshers Fair. So this is your opportunity to meet all of the presidents. So they're students, but they run the societies. So you can meet all of the sports teams and societies and ask them questions about when they meet up, when they train, when their socials are, and things like that. So you can kind of find out what opportunities are available to you while you're at uni. So like I mentioned, we do have a ton of kind of social and competitive sports teams at St Mary's. So our social teams are sort of low commitment and they're affordable. But we also have those competitive sports teams ranging from ultimate frisbee to athletics. So you could continue with a sport that you're already playing or doing, or you could take up something completely new. And I know Meg mentioned varsity earlier. So essentially varsity is an annual fixture where we go head to head with a local university. So all of our sports teams go up against each other to decide a winner. And it is just fantastic fun. And whether you're competing or spectating, you obviously just get behind your teams and it is a really good day. But obviously sports might not be your thing, which is completely fine. There are other ways to sort of meet like-minded people through societies. So you might want to join Radio Society or Filmmaking Society. And if you don't find a society that suits you, you can actually start your own society. So you would go to the Students' Union with your kind of proposal, and then they would decide whether to give you funding or not to start that, which is pretty cool and obviously a really good thing to put on your CV as well. But alongside sports clubs and societies, there are other opportunities. So I know Meg touched on these a little bit earlier. But yeah, you do have the opportunity to study abroad. Actually, universities are partnered with other universities overseas. So it just gives you that opportunity to have that international experience, meet people from all around the world and study somewhere completely new. And there is funding support available as well if you're thinking, no way am I going to be able to do that. So actually, when I was at uni, I spent some time abroad in the US, so just outside of Washington, DC. And it really just gave me the opportunity to kind of study some modules that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to at my home university, and just meet loads of people from all around the world. And then moving on, work placements as well. So you could do, a year, or you could do a semester or a sort of summer work placement. And it's just going to boost your employability and give you some just experience of the different career paths you could take with your degree, and just really give you something great to put on your CV. So when you leave university, you've actually got a degree and you've got some work experience in there as well. Okay, so moving on to support at uni. So it's so good to know that there is a ton of support out there. So on the academic side of things, there is support with your academic skills. So let's say you come to university and you're finding writing essays or coursework a bit tricky, and there are people that can help you with that. So help you with your sort of writing style and with referencing, which is a requirement at university. When you arrive, you'll also be allocated a personal tutor. So this is someone that is going to support you throughout your time at university. You'll have meetings with them and they'll be able to support you with the academic side of things, but also if you're having or experiencing any welfare issues, they can support you as well. And then finally, the careers service. So they're there to kind of give you that confidential, impartial advice. They might also help you if you're interested in finding an internship or a part-time job or a graduate job. But if you want help writing your CV or putting together an application or doing a mock interview, they're there to help you with that. And they also run careers fairs, which allow you to sort of meet employers, find out what opportunities are available to you and how you can access those opportunities. And then moving on to the kind of wellbeing side of things, you might not think you will need it, but it's just really good to know that this support is out there. So we have mental health advisors at St Mary's that are there to support you with any mental health problems you might be experiencing. And we also have qualified counsellors as well that are there to support you. And finally, there is disability and dyslexia support. So if you have a disability, temporary disability, medical condition, mental health problem, or learning difficulties such as dyslexia, there is support out there, and it is really worth getting in contact with the Wellbeing Support Service before you even start uni, because they can actually put that support in place for you before you start, so you're kind of set up and ready to go when you join us in September potentially. So moving on to just living on campus. So obviously thinking about where you're going to live is a really important part of uni, because you want to make sure that you're happy, and that's going to help you sort of enjoy your course and enjoy the social side of things as well. So you've got halls of residence. So this is accommodation that is usually reserved for first year students, but it's designed to be sort of super sociable and really convenient. So at St Mary's, the majority of our halls of residence are located on campus, and we have a few that are just a stone's throw away from the campus as well. So the different types of accommodation are sort of categorised by catering options and room types. So again, the majority of accommodation at St Mary's University is catered. So what that means is that the cost of your accommodation also covers the cost of your food. You would go to the canteen/restaurant on campus called the Ref, and you would go there for your meals. But within your accommodation, you would also have sort of a microwave facilities and work surface, so you can prepare some food, and you just wouldn't have an oven and a hob. We do also have accommodation that isn't catered, but this is usually reserved for our sort of student athletes that are sort of on specific meal plans. Then we have accommodation that has an ensuite, so you'd have your own room with sort of your bed and then your sink, toilet, shower facilities. We have standard accommodation, which is where you have your own room, but you would share sort of shower facilities. And finally, we also have shared accommodation where you would share a room with another student. So these are all priced differently, so there are lots of different options available. So my biggest sort of bit of advice would just be to check online. So like Meg said earlier, obviously you might not have had the opportunity to come and visit us, but we do have accommodation tours on our website and on YouTube. So if you just type in St Mary's University accommodation tour, you'll be able to tour the accommodation from the comfort of your own home and with one of our student ambassadors. And that just means you really can make an informed decision about where you might want to live, and looking at all of the different options and what might be best for you. But you might think actually living in student halls isn't really what you want to do, and you might want to look at some alternatives. So there are different options available, for example, private student accommodation. So this is very similar to halls of residence. The only difference is the accommodation is owned by a private company rather than the university, but it's still designed for students. So you would be living with other students. The only difference is that you might be living with students from a different sort of nearby university. But again, you sort of have all of those different room types and options in terms of having an ensuite or a standard room with shared bathroom facilities. You might just decide that you want to live in a house or a flat, and you can actually reach out to other students that are starting at the same time as you, see if there's anyone that would like to kind of group together and find a house in the local area. And finally, there are local host families that sort of provide the opportunity for students to live with them. So these are local residents that allow students to stay with them throughout the duration of their studies. So you might be able to sort of rent a room in their house, or they might have kind of more of an apartment style situation. But it's just good to know that there are alternative options out there to halls of residence if that isn't something you think you would enjoy. So just to finish off here, I just wanted to give you a few sort of top tips for settling in at university. So my sort of first thing would just be to join social media groups. So there will be Facebook groups that allow you to connect with people that are going to be on your course, people that are going to be in your halls of residence, or just other Irish students that are coming over. So you might even be able to kind of coordinate flights and come over together and do something like that. I'm not sure if Quiva did that, but it'd be interesting to find out. I'd say make your room homely. So wherever you decide to live, on campus, off campus, fill it with stuff you love, pictures, posters, just to really make you feel at home. Get to know people in your accommodation and on your course. So knock on people's doors, say hello, and on your course as well. I mean, even if you've just met someone briefing, you sort of think, oh, we really get on well. Ask them to go for a coffee. When I started uni, I sort of had been speaking to this girl for a couple of minutes. She said, oh, do you want to grab a coffee? And no one had ever said that to me before. And I don't like coffee, so I wasn't sort of all that up for it. But I went, I had a hot chocolate, and she's one of my closest friends now. So although it can seem a bit scary, I'd say it's definitely worth it. So put yourself out of your comfort zone and ask those questions. Get involved with welcome week activities, but do prioritize your health. If you want to have a nap, or you want to go to your room and rest or meditate, or go to the gym, go for a run, and make sure you prioritize that. And finally, explore the local area. Find your kind of favorite spots to chill out, because it's going to help you feel at home. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about the local area and stuff available a little bit later. But what I'd like to do now is just move on to the Q&A. So I'm just going to check if there are any questions in the Q&A or chat box. I can see we have a question for Quiva. So I think actually this will be a great time to sort of do our Q&A. So I've got some questions for Quiva. I think Meg does as well. But we'll kick off with this first question. So Quiva, question for you. What do you have to do when you come back to Ireland after your studies to become a qualified primary school teacher?
Perfect. So I'm now in my final year of primary education with QTS. So once I graduate now in the middle of July, I have to do 2 years of teaching in a school in England. So they call it ECT, which is Early Career Teacher. It used to be NQT year, but now they've increased it to 2, as it allows students to get a bit more support for 2 years rather than just 1 year. So we actually think it's a great thing they've now introduced in September 2021. So now when I get a job in September, I'll get support from teachers or a mentor in the primary schools in England for an extra 2 years. And it also gives us an extra time to plan and everything. So once I have those 2 years complete here in England, or you can actually go anywhere except, I think you can go to Northern Ireland, but you can choose to do your ECT years anywhere. So I know people who went to, I think, Tokyo, for instance. You can pick anywhere around the world if you'd like to go anywhere different. And then I go back to Ireland, and there's an Irish exam in Maynooth, which I haven't fully looked into yet, but that is available for students who study abroad. Come back and do the Irish exam, and then you are fully qualified to teach and register with the Teaching Council in Ireland. Just one other thing, this St Mary's actually offered the Catholic certificate with religious studies, which is also a requirement to teach in Ireland. So I completed that in my second year of uni, and it's an extra course which St Mary's offer, and it's £270, but it covers, it's great that the university offered that for students, because I think it's more expensive if you apply for it outside of university. So it's, yeah.
Thank you, Quiva. And I was just going to, my sort of first question to you following on from that would just be, can you just tell us a little bit about kind of the contact hours for your course and placement? So kind of what are the time demands of your course?
So first of all, with placement, I actually just completed a 3-week placement there in Ireland. I'm from County Mayo. So you're allowed to complete some of your placements in Ireland. So we have the enhancement placement, and then you have your assessed placement. So with our 3-year course, every year you're offered some enhancement placement, which is more of an opportunity for you to go into school and kind of focus on something that you'd like to focus on for those 2 to 3 weeks. So for instance, I said I'd like to do my 3 weeks in Ireland and just experience teaching in Ireland. And I absolutely love that. And then you have your assessed placement. So on the 14th of March, I have a 9-week block, Monday to Friday placement coming up for that ends at the end of May, and that will be formally assessed. So I'll have my link tutors coming in and maybe observing some lessons, and you're uploading all your lesson plans and so on onto an online website. But with the amount of placement that we get in first year, it is 8 weeks. The first 4 weeks are Monday to Friday placement, full day. And then the 4 weeks after Christmas are for your first 4 weeks, it's a Monday to Wednesday placement. And then your last 4 weeks in first year is a Monday to Friday placement. And then in second year, you have an 8-week block, Monday to Friday of placement. And then you're offered the opportunity to complete the special needs placement, which is a 2-week one during the summer. So I completed my special needs placement the first week of June and did 2 weeks over here. And that's optional, but I would highly recommend it to anyone doing primary teaching. It was incredible. I loved it. And then you have 12 full weeks then in your third year of third year. And then with regards to the contact hours, this year, for instance, before Christmas, I had some weeks where it was maybe 12 to 14 hours. So you'd have your 2-hour lectures for your core subjects like your maths, your English, your modern foreign languages, PE and science. And then you'll also have some whole cohort lectures with, like, the core subjects are usually 20 to 25 students per lecture. And then for like your whole cohort, there's about 100 students in my year. And we'd have like professional studies, which would go through like assessment and loads of different things. So in total about, I would say 12 to 14 hours a week, but that really does vary, especially with COVID. It's hard to know when COVID is completely over, what will the contact hours be like in September. But I love going into uni and actually having face-to-face lectures. And I love for our course how there's small little groups that we have our core subjects with. So group of 20 doing your maths, English and MFL or science or PE. It's just nice because it's a lot of practical activities during the lectures and they're really, really useful. So yeah.
Amazing. We've actually got more questions coming in the Q&A now as well. And the first one, and this might have been covered because it's not my field of area, so sorry if you have already covered this, but can you do the 2-year review in Northern Ireland?
See, it's a new, the ECT year is a new thing now that's been introduced. So it used to be NQT. As far as I'm aware, I have been told you can actually do an ECT year, which takes 1 year in Northern Ireland. So once you do either your PGCE or your Primary Education with QTS 3-year course, you actually can do your NQT or ECT year now in Northern Ireland, just not in the Republic because they can't offer that extra support which you get everywhere else. Yeah.
Perfect. And second question, I don't know if you'll be able to explain this. I can give it a go if not, but would you need to do a PGCE course after the Primary QTS course? I presume that's a no because you're a qualified teacher after, is that right?
Yes, yeah. So you do have the same qualification with your 1-year PGCE course or your Primary Education with QTS course. I have a few friends who I play Gaelic football with at university here, and majority of them have came over after doing a 3-year degree in Ireland, and now they're doing their 1-year PGCE course to be fully qualified to teach back at home as well. And they have the same, they still have to do their ECT year they can do 1 year in Northern Ireland, 2 years here, but it's the same qualification at the end. So yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
We have another question, which is what are the grade requirements for A-levels to do the primary education course? I can quickly check that out unless Rachel, you know off the top of your head.
I believe off the top of my head, but we will double check this just to be sure. I don't think there are any sort of specific A-levels you have to have taken. It's just the UCAS sort of requirements. You have to meet the certain UCAS threshold, which I believe is the 96 to 104. But yeah, Meg, if you don't mind double checking that, so we're ensuring we're giving you the correct information. But you do have to have got your sort of, depending on which it was for primary education. So for primary, you do need to have your maths, science and English GCSE to be eligible for that course. So that there's sort of the entry requirements off the top of my head there, but we'll get confirmation. Meg, do you have that up already, or should we just give you a minute and ask another question in between?
You ask another question in between, but from what you've said, sounds pretty right.
But I was going to say, Caoimhe, my next question for you was just to ask a little bit about your experience of accommodation at St Mary's.
Yeah.
So could you just tell us a little bit about where you lived in your first year, and then where you lived in your sort of second and third years / where you're
Perfect,
living
no
now?
bother. Yeah, no bother. So in first year, I actually rented a room. So I wasn't too sure where I was going to university. And then I decided late on that I would like to apply to St. Mary's. So unfortunately, it was the end of August. So there was no student accommodation available, but I am aware that they do offer the campus accommodation to first years first. They do priorities first year students, but unfortunately, because I was late applying, the university did support me in this with the student pad, and they gave me information for contacting people locally. But I rented a room in first year, which was about a 20-minute walk from university with the lady, and I absolutely loved that. And my parents also loved that because it was like a home from home, and I lived with the family and they really treated me like one of their own. So it was really, really nice for settling into a brand new area and new country and everything. And it was absolutely lovely. Then in my second year, I applied for campus accommodation, which was what Meg was speaking about earlier. We have about 650 students living on campus in St. Mary's. I think that's around the figure that we have at the moment. And there's plenty of different accommodations, which Rachel went through. But I applied for Demaralac, which is just behind the running track on campus. And I actually applied as a student, as a senior resident. So I was, how it works is that each campus accommodation actually has like a big brother, big sister kind of person. So I was like the big sister for just one corridor in Demaralac. So I had about 36 students who joined that year. And if they had any issues at all, usually it's a second or third year student, but I had majority first year students with me that year in second year. And if they had any issues with settling in or any questions at all, they could always just come to me. But I think if I was a first year, I would have loved to have had a senior resident just to go to. And it was just really nice because I was just there if they needed anything and talk them through whatever they needed, really. So that was my second year experience on living on campus. It is also catered accommodation. So we had our dinners and our breakfast every day, which I thought was amazing. When I was on placement for 8 weeks, just to come back in the evenings and have the dinners ready, it was brilliant. And the accommodation does cater for all dietary needs as well. So it is a great facility to have with our, but yes. And then for my final year, I'm currently in a house share with 3 other primary ed students. And again, St. Mary's have a student pad online. So this is how we found our house. We just searched what we were looking for, 4-bedroom place near St. Mary's University, and it's about a 30-minute walking distance from uni, which is usually, well, we're lucky in our area, we have actually quite a few friends living around us as well. We're by Twickenham Stadium. Usually students do live around the Twickenham Stadium, Twickenham Station area, or you can go towards Teddington side. My younger sister is living in Teddington side as well, and she is about a 10-minute walk from university. So it really does depend where you apply for, but the student pad is really useful on the website, on St. Mary's website, just for finding accommodation locally. So yeah.
Amazing. I've put the entry requirements for primary education in the chat. Any further questions on top of that, please let us know. I'm quickly going to answer one question, which is St. Mary's the only university in London, or are there other St. Mary's? There is a Queen Mary's, that might be the other Mary's that you're thinking of, and I'm pretty sure there's a St. Mary's in Belfast as well. So there's a lot of Mary's going around, but no, we are St. Mary's in Twickenham, just to clarify. And Rachel or Caoimhe, I don't know if you can answer this one. How many subjects are counted to reach the 96 to 104 UCAS points in the Irish Leaving Certificate or Cert?
Thank you, Meg. Yeah, I'll cover that one. I've actually got a slide coming up shortly, which sort of gives you that breakdown of what your Leaving Certificate grades would need to, what would equate to 96 UCAS points, 104 and 112. So hopefully that will give you a better idea. But obviously, if you do have any further questions, please do post them. But I think before we move on to the next section of the presentation, I do just have one more question for Caoimhe, and that is just, can you tell us a little bit about the extracurricular activities you've been involved in? So whether you've been involved with any clubs or societies, and if so, what kind of opportunities you've had with that?
Perfect. Okay. So in first year, after we have the welcome week, which I actually had in first year, was called Freshers Fortnight. So I met lots of different Irish students that week. It was brilliant, and they held so many different events. So when I met Irish students during that week, I then joined the Gaelic football team, which was lovely. And there was I think we had about a team of 20. And then we went to Birmingham in first year for championship. And then I also tried lacrosse for a little bit just to see what that was like, because we don't have that in Ireland. Well, as far as I'm aware, I don't think it's there yet. And I just tried a few different other sports. I'm currently a part of tennis, which I never thought I would say. And I'm actually the social sec for tennis. So they literally will take in anyone to just help out with the club. So at the end of last year, I offered just to give them an extra hand, and which that actually resulted in me getting an entry card into the local nightclub, free of entry for the rest of the year. So it's a great little plus to have, and you actually get a +1 with that. So there's lots of different things you can do for the clubs and societies around. So if you're a part of a sport club or a sport team, you can then apply to help out the following year to be like the social sec or the president of the club, which is a really nice thing to do. So I joined the Gaelic, the tennis, tried lacrosse. There's loads of different clubs. On our website, you can actually view, I think we have at least 20 different sports clubs you can join, and it's incredible. You can, like, once you have a membership for one, you can join as many as you like. So it's really, really nice. And then society wise, I didn't actually join a society at all during my time at St. Mary's, as I just was focused more on the sports. But we have so many societies that you can join as well. Currently the Fishing Society is a big one. We have like over 100 members of that, but they do a little bit of fishing, but they do so many other activities, which is crazy. Like, I see everyone going around with Fishing Society hoodies and hats, and it's a big club at the moment. So they have great little outings. But yeah, I think there's a lot of different opportunities. And during the welcome week, there's the Freshers Fair, which they have in the hall. So you can just walk around to all the different stands. You get to chat to anyone who's a part of a club or a society. And I remember that week just signing up for every single thing I could, just to meet new people. It was great. And just there's so many things you can do with your club as well. Travel to different sporting events. Like, it's just great. I love the clubs and societies at St. Mary's. They really do cover every type of sport you'd like to join, or a society. They're all available at this uni. So it's great.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Caoimhe. No, it's great to hear about your experiences.
Yeah.
And as you say, there is so much to get involved with. So yeah, thank you so much. And obviously do just continue to post questions in the chat box or the Q&A, and we can continue to answer those. So I'm going to move on now to the next section of the presentation, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end of that as well, so more opportunities to ask questions. So I'm just going to share my screen. Everyone see that okay? Fantastic. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a student in London, and sort of some of the different things that are available. So I think one of the sort of main and maybe very obvious things is that you do sort of have world famous attractions, iconic landmarks right on your doorstep. And obviously there is also a great sort of culture and art scene in London as well. And so it's good to have that very close by. And with that kind of comes access to resources. So there are tons of museums, libraries and research collections. So whether you just want to do some personal research or whether it's actually for your course, there's a whole host of resources there available to support you with your studies, or just if you fancy going on a day out. And then obviously the next thing is getting around. So if you do want to go and visit one of these museums, the transport in London is fantastic. So you might have had a chance to visit, and you might have used these transport links. I've just sort of written a list there of the different ways you can get around. So you could jump on a bus, you could be on an overground train, underground train, on a bike, in a taxi. So it is really easy to get around during the day and at night. And if you are a student, you can also apply for a student rail card, which will give you a third off of all of your rail fares. So you can save on transport as a student in London as well. There are work opportunities. So I know we've already mentioned kind of finding work placements. But if you do want to have a part-time job alongside your studies, whether that might be something that's linked to your course or just something that's going to give you a bit of extra money, and there are tons of opportunities with lots of different companies. And obviously, if you do think, actually, I want to do a work placement for a semester or a summer, and there are tons of companies and organisations that are right on the doorstep in London, and so you really are in the best place to find a work placement. I think it's worth pointing out how just multicultural London is. And so London is one of the most ethnically diverse cities in the world. And so approximately a third of Londoners are born abroad, and there are over 200 languages spoken. And because of that, with sort of that wide range of cultures and languages, there are it's celebrated in so many different ways. So whether that's through food, you can really find, food that you really love, or maybe something you've never tried before. And also festivals, so stuff like Notting Hill Carnival, which celebrates Caribbean culture, and stuff like St Patrick's Day as well. And so sort of huge celebrations going on in London for so many different festivals and for different cultures and nationalities. So that kind of leads on to the social scene. So London does just have a buzz about it. There is a lot going on. So it is a really fun place to be a student. So there are over 5,000 restaurants, 7,000 pubs and bars, and then 350 music venues. So there really is always something going on. And I think sometimes London gets a little bit of a bad reputation maybe for being really expensive. But there are a ton of free things to do as well. So like I've already mentioned, museums and things like that. And you've got websites like Time Out London, Secret London, that give you like huge lists of free things to do in London, or the best deals that are happening at that particular time. So you really can fill your weekends without having to spend too much money. And one particular thing that I really like going along to, and I only figured this out when I sort of moved to London, was the museums run late. So it's kind of like a late night museum session where you can kind of go to exhibitions, workshops, they might have DJs on, and it's free to attend. So I thought that was really cool. Just a little thing that I like to do in London. We're kind of moving on to St Mary's. So I know you've already seen a bit of a video of the campus, but as you can see from the bird's eye view here, St Mary's isn't based in the heart of London with skyscrapers. It is in the leafy green part of London in Twickenham. So I just want to give you a little bit of an overview of the local area, so you'll get a bit of an idea of, if you do decide to study at St Mary's, where you'll be studying and what's pretty close by. So you can kind of see from the map to the right, I pinpointed where St Mary's is with a little location tag. But as you can see, we're right by the river. But as you sort of go from the top to the bottom, you can see you've got Richmond at the top of the river there, Twickenham, which is where St Mary's is based, Teddington, and then at the bottom you've got Kingston as well. And I think it is worth pointing out that Heathrow is just a 20-minute car journey away. So when you are flying over, it's really easy to get to St Mary's University from Heathrow. But there are also other airports based in London as well. So if you're wanting to find the cheapest deal, you could fly into a different airport, but it's good to know that there is one just a 20-minute drive away. So just I want to touch upon sort of what you can do in the sort of surrounding areas around St Mary's. So the first one to talk about is Richmond. So Richmond is just a 15-minute bus journey away from St Mary's. And so it's just like 5 stops on the bus, it's 2 miles away. And Richmond has really fantastic transport links. So it's got an underground train service and overground. So you can pretty much be anywhere in London within an hour. And it does also have loads of pubs, bars and restaurants. So you've got, your classic McDonald's, and then you've got some more like high-end restaurants as well. But there really is sort of something for everyone, and an Odeon as well if you like going to the cinema. But Richmond is on the riverfront, so you could see from the map. So you could do kind of water sports like paddleboarding in the summer. There's tons of restaurants, and you can just really just walk along the riverfront, cycle, run, and whatever your preference. But it's just a really beautiful part of London. And you might have actually seen Richmond without knowing it. So Richmond is actually home to the fictional football club, Richmond FC. So if you have seen Ted Lasso, Richmond is set there, so you might have actually seen a bit of Richmond without knowing. But if you want to, you could always watch this TV series. You've got Richmond Park, so it's one of the largest parks in London, so 2,500 acres of like grassland, and it's home to lots of deer as well. So if you like deer, then definitely head to Richmond Park. But again, it's just a nice place to relax, sort of run or have a picnic with friends. So there are a lot of spaces around the university for you just to relax among the trees. Kew Gardens is also based in Richmond. So these are botanical gardens. Again, lots of kind of greenhouses and green space, and there is a student discount as well. So it's definitely a good thing to take advantage of. And finally, in Richmond, you have the Richmond Theatre, where there are lots of sort of shows that are about to go into the West End or have just come out of the West End. So you can really see some world-class productions pretty much on your doorstep. You don't have to travel very far from St Mary's to get there. Obviously Twickenham, so St Mary's is based in Twickenham, but the high street is about a 10-minute walk away. And again, it's got tons of shops and restaurants, everything you might need. And like we mentioned earlier, Twickenham Stadium. So obviously if you are a rugby fan, then you've got world-class rugby on your doorstep. And you've also got the river as well. So if you do want to go for a walk and just get some fresh air, you've got the river on your doorstep too. Not to mention the Exchange as well. So this is a theatre space in the centre of Twickenham, and this is actually leased to St Mary's. So you might want to go and watch a production there, or you might actually feature in a production, or you might use the space for teaching if you do decide to enrol onto one of our acting or technical theatre courses as well. And then you've got Teddington. So Meg mentioned earlier our Teddington Lock campus. So the Teddington Lock campus is just a 10-minute walk away, but Teddington High Street is a 15-minute walk away from campus. And it is just filled with independent shops and restaurants, and it has a really nice kind of community feel to it. And it was actually rated the best place in London to live in 2021. So it is a really lovely area. And obviously we've got our world-class sports facilities as well at Teddington Lock. And last but not least, you've got Kingston. So Kingston is just 2 stops on the train away from St Mary's. It has a huge shopping centre, a large high street, and Hampton Court Palace. So Henry VIII's palace is located there, and not to mention as well the Rose Theatre as well. So I think it's the largest theatre in southwest London, which is pretty cool. So you've kind of got theatres on your doorstep, and if you're interested in seeing performances and musicals. So I'm just going to pause and just double check that there aren't any questions in the chat before we move on to the application process for applying to St Mary's. So I think we're all good with questions. Fantastic. So I'm just going to move on to talk about how to apply for St Mary's and how to apply for student finance as well. So one of the questions earlier was about entry requirements. So just so you can see here on the board, we do have our sort of entry requirements for the Leaving Certificate broken down here. So for our courses that are asking for 96 to 104 UCAS points, that will be sort of the equivalent to sort of H3, 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 or H3, 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 H2, bit of a tongue twister there. And then some of our courses, such as physiotherapy and psychology, ask for slightly higher entry requirements, so 112 UCAS points, which would be H3, H3, H2, H2. But it's also worth pointing out that we accept QQI qualifications as well. So for the majority of our courses, we would be asking for 4+ distinctions. But again, for physiotherapy and for psychology, it would be 5+ distinctions for those courses. So how do you apply? So you apply through UCAS. So that is essentially the universities and colleges application service in the UK. So it's very similar to the Central Applications Office in Ireland. So you would apply online for courses. So what you would need to do is you would need to create a UCAS Hub account. and you need to register by filling in just a few details that you can see there on the right hand side. So email, first name, second name, and create a password. Then once you've logged in, you'll be taken to your UCAS dashboard, and you'll see a tile there that says your applications, and you literally just need to click start, and that's where you then fill in kind of the bulk of the information. And it is really worth pointing out that you don't need to complete it all at once. You can sort of save it and then come back to it at a different time. So you will have to fill in sort of personal details about your qualifications, and you'll then need to put in what courses you're applying for at which universities. So you've got sort of 5 choices. So you could apply for 5 different courses at 5 different universities. You'll also need to upload a personal statement, which is essentially an A4 piece about why you'd be a great candidate for that university. Someone from your school or college will also need to write an academic reference for you. And finally, you need to pay the application fee, which is under £30, so it's not too much at all. But that would be how you would apply for your courses. But then moving on to the student finance side of things, so how are you going to fund it? So you are eligible for a tuition fee loan. So all degrees in the UK cost £9,250 per person per year. So this cost covers the cost of your teaching, but also those support services as well while you're at uni. So if you do decide to study part-time, this will be slightly less, but your course might run for a longer time. So it might be 5 years rather than 3. But it's really worth pointing out that this doesn't cover your accommodation, your food, or your travel, or any other costs associated with university. It is just your tuition fee. So this is available through Student Finance England. So essentially, this is paid sort of directly from Student Finance England to your university. So it's essentially borrowing money from the government to cover the cost of your tuition fees. And you are eligible for this loan as an Irish student. So if you apply for the loan, as I said, that money will be paid directly to the university. The money won't go into your bank account or come out. It goes straight from the government to the university, but you do have to apply for it, because if you don't apply, they won't be paying the university. So how do you apply for this funding? So you need to apply on the Student Finance England website. So if you visit the website, you then need to find the EU application form for the year that you're wanting to apply. So if you're applying for a September 2022 start, that application form is already on the Student Finance England website. And if you are applying for 2023, that form usually becomes available in February or March time. So you need to print that form, complete it, and you'll then need to send the form off to an address that will be on the bottom of the form, along with all of the evidence that is required. You'll then get confirmation that you've got that student loan. So when you start university, that £9,250 will be paid directly to the university. It's also worth noting that there is also additional finance available at the uni. So you've got scholarships and bursaries, and these don't need to be paid back. So this is kind of like free money that you don't ever have to pay back. So scholarships are usually linked to academic results or kind of your ability or excellence in certain areas, such as things like sport or maybe at other universities, music. And these can be quite specific and sometimes limited in numbers. Whereas bursaries are more linked to your personal circumstances. So for students that are facing financial hardship, you might be eligible for a bursary. So what I would say is have a look at all of the scholarships and bursaries available and apply to all and any that you think you're eligible for, because you just don't know what money you might get. And obviously any money is great. So definitely apply for those things. And so I just want to give you a little bit of information about the scholarships that are available at St Mary's. And so I'm going to tell you about our sports scholarships. We do have other scholarships available that are on our website, so please do have a look at those. But our sports scholarships range from £1,000 to £4,000. They're open to all St Mary's students, regardless of what year you're in or what programme you're studying. So we've got different scholarships for different students. So if you're competing at kind of senior international level, you could be eligible for the gold scholarship. Silver scholarships are for athletes that are competing at national or junior level, and bronze for athletes competing at county or regional level. So if you think you fit into any of those categories, please do apply. It's also worth noting that we do also have funding available if you do decide to do one of our sports courses and you want to do a coaching qualification or any additional qualifications. You can apply for £300 worth of funding at any point during your degree. It doesn't matter what year you're in, to be able to gain those qualifications as well. But like I said, this isn't an exhaustive list of all of our scholarships and bursaries. There are others available, so I strongly encourage you to check them out on our website if you are interested in applying for one of those. And there is also other help, and again, this is money that you do not have to pay back. So we do have a hardship fund at St Mary's for students that are facing financial hardship. There's also a dependence allowance, so for anyone that's got an adult that is financially dependent upon them, or children that are financially dependent upon them, and there is also funding available. And finally, there is a disabled students allowance too. So this is for any student kind of with any medical condition, disability, like I said before, temporary disability, mental health condition, or learning difficulty such as dyslexia. And this support might come in a variety of different forms. So it might be for kind of non-medical helpers, specialist equipment, it might be for help with travel costs and things like that. So like I said before, definitely get in contact with the wellbeing team if you think you might be sort of eligible for any of that funding, and also just to get in contact about support as well. And I just wanted to give a few top tips for budgeting as well. So I'd say when you do go to university, if you decide to go, do budget. And so the word can be a bit scary, but it's essentially just stopping you from running out of money. And so obviously just look at all of your income, take away your outgoings, and then you'll be left with your sort of like monthly spending money. And so, for example, your income might be any scholarships or bursaries you might be receiving, any support you might be getting from your family. And then obviously you want to take out your essential outgoings, things like your rent, accommodation, and your travel, food, and things like that. But obviously, if you do go for a catered accommodation, and then your food and accommodation will be combined. Take advantage of student discounts. So, like I said earlier, you can get up to a third off of your like travel costs, your rail fares. There's also lots of different discounts as well you can get on apps on your phone, and you can use them in the majority of shops and restaurants. So it's a great way to save money and save on travel. Might seem obvious, but don't overspend. So definitely do budget, work out how much money you've got to kind of last you for a certain amount of time, and try not to go over that too much. Try not to spend all of your money in the first few weeks in, Freshers Fortnight or Welcome Week. And that obviously comes down to just checking your account regularly. It's easy to sort of try and not look at it and hope everything's okay, but it's good to keep looking at it and making sure you know how much money you've got in there. And finally, just I'd really recommend opening a student bank account if you haven't already. They give you really good interest rates, and then also an interest-free overdraft as well. So if you do sort of go into minus figures, you're not going to be charged extra on top of that. So just to move on to the repayment side of things. So if you do apply for your tuition fee loan of £9,250, once you finish studying, you don't just get a bill sent through your door for your whole tuition fee, and you pay it off sort of so you pay it off monthly essentially. But you don't start paying it until the April after you finished university. So it's sort of nearly a year later. If you graduate in July, August time, you won't start paying it off until the April, and you're only going to pay it if you're earning over £27,295 before tax. So if you're earning any less than that figure, you won't be paying off your student loan. You have to be earning over that threshold, and the payments will freeze if at any point your salary drops below that figure. So let's say you graduate and you're earning over £28,000, but then you get a new job and you're earning 27, and you do just stop paying your student loan back. And what happens is you pay it monthly, and then after 30 years, your student loan is actually wiped. So let's say you earn £27,000 for 30 years after you've graduated from university, you'll actually never pay your student loan back. So it is wiped after 30 years. So you are taxed from your payslip. So it's just like a phone bill coming out of your account. It's actually less than a phone bill. It's definitely less than mine anyway. So I've got a bit of a table on the board to show you how much you'll be paying back each month based upon your salary. So as you can see from the column to the left, if you're earning £27,295 annually, you'll be paying back none of your student loan. But as your salary increases, the amount you pay back monthly increases as well. So it's kind of works out with your salary. So if you're earning £28,000 a year, you'd be paying £5 a month back. And I know that is definitely less than my monthly phone bill. I don't know about you. But that's how the repayment system works. And you might also be thinking you haven't actually applied for university this year, which is completely fine. And you're starting to think, I want to. And the application deadline has passed. And if you are thinking about applying, you can apply through clearing. And that opens on July 5th. So it's just a really good one to signpost, as I didn't put a slide on that. So just before I open up for any more questions, please do post them in the chat or in the Q&A. I'm just going to check which one's currently in there already.
I actually accidentally answered one live and obviously didn't answer it live. But someone said, do St Mary's do clearing? And obviously, Rachel, you just answered that for us. But yes, we do. And that opens in July, or you can call up in August once you get your results. If you've already applied to St Mary's, I think there's a question here which says that you didn't apply to St Mary's, but you've now changed your mind. There is, alongside clearing, you also have adjustment. And that is where, depending on your grade, you might want to adjust to a different university. So you can call up St Mary's and say, I have these grades. Do you still have a space on whichever course you'd like to apply to? Of course, it depends on the day. We do it case by case, how many spaces are left. So just apply through clearing as soon as possible, really, if that is your situation, or get in touch with apply@stmarys.ac.uk, as they're the experts on applications and will be able to give you the most suitable information possible.
Thank you so much, Meg. So what we'll do now is we'll just have a final Q&A, and so we probably will be wrapping up before 6 o'clock. But please do post your questions in the chat and in the Q&A function for Caoimhe. But I just want to kick off with a question. My first question, Caoimhe, for you is, what do you enjoy about studying in London?
I love London, just everything about it, really. I love the location of St Mary's because it is that like 40-minute train to Central, and then you have so many opportunities in Central, like anything that you'd like to do. So this week we're going to a West End show, and it actually is quite doable for students because we have apps like this Today Ticks app that you can have, and you get notifications when the tickets are on sale or if there's like discounted prices. So it's great to have West End shows right on our doorstep, really. And I love the local area, like Richmond. We love going to Richmond for Freshers Week. Actually, they held cycling and paddleboarding in Richmond, and then Kingston, which is our where we usually go out on a Wednesday night. So we have the nightclub in Kingston, and there's Spoons, and there's just loads of different little pubs and bars around the place. Teddington is also lovely. I love Bushy Park, that area. It's just really nice. I did a placement there and I just love that whole area. It's really, really nice. Anything else about London? Just so many different opportunities here. When you're living in Twickenham, it's so easy to get around. Like this, literally Twickenham station can bring you anywhere really that you need to go, and it's just everything's so local. There's so many things to do every weekend, really. If you have the money, there's always something that you can do. So it's lovely. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you, Griva. And actually, Meg, I'm going to pass that question to you as well, because obviously you studied in London and live in the local area. So I guess, like, what did you enjoy about studying in London, and also like maybe just what are your sort of favourite places in the local area as well?
For sure, yeah, I love studying in London, and although I'm from England, I didn't live anywhere near London. So for me, coming to a big city where there was literally something for me any day of the week was incredible. And I think I mentioned earlier, no matter what your hobbies or interests, you will find something in London that suits you, no matter what. I was quite lucky. I got to live in Teddington and Twickenham during my undergraduate degree and my postgraduate degree. I loved living in Twickenham a little bit more because I'm definitely someone who likes a pub, and I love the vibe of Twickenham, especially on a weekend when the rugby is on, and that was great for me. So I love Twickenham. I used to live right by the river as well, so on a Sunday I might go have a roast like at this pub called the White Swan, and there's literally a I don't know what you would call it, like a balcony thing that goes over the river, which is so lovely. And you can walk from Richmond to Kingston if you are fancying, if you're someone like that who likes to cycle or run, which I did during uni. I just love the river. I loved having that there. And then also just being able to go to London as well. But I've got to say, Twickenham was definitely my favourite area, I think, just because it was baffling to me coming from a small village in Worcestershire that no matter what time of day I could just like cross the road and go to a shop or something like that. And Twickenham has that all day, every night. So I really, really enjoyed just having whatever I needed on the street that I lived, which was crazy concept for me. And now I've actually moved outside of Teddington. I think that's the one thing I miss the most about Teddington and Twickenham is, yeah, having everything I need on my doorstep, if that makes sense.
No, thank you, Megan. Again, I'm not from London either, and I think that's one of the things that's amazed me, that it just doesn't sleep and everything is always open. There's always something to do. But I've just seen that there is a question in the Q&A box, and it's on average how many Irish students come to study at St Mary's each autumn. So we do actually have hundreds of Irish students. I don't have an exact figure for you, unfortunately. I'm not sure if Meg or Caoimhe do, but we do have. I mean, Caoimhe, do you know how many Irish students started at the same time as you?
Yeah, on my course, just on the Primary Education with QTS course, we have about 10 out of the 100. So 10 out of 100 is quite a lot. And then again, there was like this Irish students doing lots of different courses. Like there's a few that are doing sports courses, and then the extra year PGCE to do PE teaching at home and so on. So yeah, there's quite a few around campus. Like the fact we have a Gaelic football team, I think says a lot as well for the university. And it's not just Irish students on that team, but majority are Irish students.
Yeah, I think during my course, I think also one of the student life president at one point was from Ireland. So I mean, the community of Irish students is huge, and yeah, it plays a massive role in just the lifestyle of St Mary's as well. So yeah, definitely loads of Irish students.
Fantastic. And then Caoimhe, the next sort of question for you is kind of moving more on to having a part-time job at uni, because obviously I understand that managing your finances, budgeting is obviously a massive consideration when thinking about where to study. So my question to you is just, did you always plan work part-time? Or can you tell us first of all a little bit about your part-time job? And then did you actually always plan to work part-time, and do you have a second job? A lot of questions there.
It's okay. At the moment, I'm just the student ambassador. So I have actually applied for that in my first year. I just thought it sounded really nice, that there was lots of different work opportunities. So there was the interview process and all that. So we have quite a few student ambassadors on campus. So what I loved about that job is, for my course, I thought it was really flexible. So literally maybe once a week they might just upload new work opportunities online that you can just apply for, and I then would work on campus. Usually the work would involve just me doing the open days for St Mary's or the campus tours. I did a few freshers events, so I'd like travel to a few areas just like have a stall for St Mary's and just chat about loads of different things about the university. But it was absolutely brilliant that it was so flexible, that I wasn't tied to a job at weekends, because just with placement and everything, I just thought being a student ambassador, it allowed me to apply for as many jobs as I wanted. Or when I was on my 8-week placement in first and second year, I just said I prefer not to work during that time. So you don't have to let them know or anything. It's just you apply whenever suits you. Like we had like a wobble week at university. So I just applied for a few random work shifts during that week, which is maybe 3 hours after one of my lectures, another 2 hour shift at another stage. It was just really flexible. And that's what I love about being a student ambassador. And I just recommend it to anyone starting university, apply in second year, as it's a great job to have, and it's a great wage. It's £10.55 an hour, which is the London living wage. So I thought that was a great income coming in. And also, if you're a student ambassador, you can apply to be a uni buddy. So at the moment, I'm a uni buddy, which I trained for in my second year. And it's just an app on my phone. And I just answer loads of different questions from like potential students who just will message me anytime, and you've 24 hours to respond to them. But again, that is £45 a month just coming in, even if you don't get any messages. And then the amount of time you spend in the app, it depends, you can get a little bit extra. But at the moment, it's usually just, you get your £45 a month for being on the app, or like texting back students. And it's a lovely little job to have as well, because it's not like you're being swamped with loads of different messages. It's just, you'll have a few random ones coming in, and it's nice. And I actually, funnily enough, one of the girls that lives with my sister, I was chatting to her all summer, trying to convince her to come to St. Mary's, and now she's living with my sister. So majority of Irish students would contact me through that app, which is nice.
That is really nice. And actually, it's worth pointing out that if you have any follow-up questions for Caoimhe after this webinar, just head to our UniBuddy platform on St. Mary's and look for her name.
I think I'm the only Caoimhe, so it should be easy to find.
For sure. Another question is kind of two parts. So someone's asked, can you catch the bus to Heathrow from outside the university? You can catch the 285 to Heathrow Central, which is down the road from the university. But someone has asked Caoimhe, like, what route do you take personally to the airport and getting home, and how is that logistics wise?
So my local airport would be Knock Airport. So that's about a 40-minute drive for me at home. But that only flies currently into Gatwick or Stansted. So I prefer if I fly from Shannon Airport to Heathrow, just because one of my housemates has a car and she would usually drive, because it is only a 20-minute drive to come pick me up and back home again. But before I lived in this current house, I would usually just either it's quite straightforward. You can either get a bus back to St. Mary's campus from Heathrow, which I think would take, with the buses, it would maybe take, I think, about 40 minutes. But it does depend, obviously, on the buses. They're all different. But I'd usually fly into Heathrow and then about a 40-minute bus journey back. But it's usually straightforward. And to be honest, Google Maps has got me through it up to this stage. So I don't even think you need any of the fancy apps. If you just put in Heathrow Airport back to St. Mary's University, you'll get there in no time. It's great to have that airport on our doorstep. I think it's brilliant. Just, it's easy to fly over and back. And with regards to the flight prices, so if you book in advance, so for like with primary education as well, you have your midterm breaks or your half terms and your Easter holidays, so you kind of know when you can fly home for those. We even have Reading Week as well, so there's a time before Christmas where you can just fly back for a week if you'd like to. So it's nice, it's easy to fly over and back. Like, I have friends in the south of Ireland who it takes them longer to get back to where I'm from in Mayo than it would for me to go flying from London to Mayo. So it's crazy, but yeah.
That's fab.
Yeah, thank you, Caoimhe, for that. And I guess my final question, and please, obviously, Meg, if you've got any more, do ask them. And again, if you've got any final questions, please do post them in the chat. And obviously, like Meg said, you can always find Caoimhe later. But it was just, I just wanted to sort of touch upon you sort of settling into uni. So when you did have that kind of first journey coming over, like, had you, first of all, the two parts of this, had you visited St. Mary's before you decided to study here? And then how did you find settling in when you actually came over for your first year?
Okay, perfect. So because I applied late, I actually did the whole interview process late. So I interviewed there and you had to come over to St. Mary's to do it in person. So I flew over at the end of August, had my interview. They responded about a week later to say I could start mid-September. So it was all very quick, the whole process. But I flew over then again. So I came over at the end of August with my mum to do my interview. And then 2 weeks later, I moved over then into the house, into the room I was renting in the family home. But it was quite straightforward, flying over, and then my uncle picked me up and brought me to the house where I was staying. But other than that, settling in wise, it was quite easy with regards to that. They held so many different events because like the university is just great for meeting people. They just held so many things during that Freshers Week, and then was Freshers Fortnight when I was in first year. This year was Freshers Week. But moving over, you had a second question, Rachel, was it just about regards, sorry, moving over and then
Yeah, no, I think you touched upon it. Yeah, just how you found settling in, I guess, when you did arrive. But I think you've pretty much covered that.
Brilliant. Okay, because it was just really like, even with the course itself, the very start of it was all just kind of getting to know each other, icebreakers, and just building those relationships within your course as well and where you were living. But yeah, I'd highly recommend living on campus for anyone who's thinking about studying at St. Mary's, just for your first year, because you have that chance to just meet so many, like loads of people. But if you don't live on campus, you can also attend all the different events that the uni hold. But, yeah.
Cool. And thank you. And Meg, did you have any final questions before we sort of wrap up?
I don't think I do. I think the questions that we've been receiving throughout the last hour and a half have been amazing. So thank you for sending those in. I don't have any final questions for Caoimhe. So yeah.
No, I mean, I guess my final question to you, Caoimhe, would be, is there anything else that you would like to add that you feel we haven't covered that would be really beneficial for students thinking of studying at St Mary's to know? No worries if not.
I am just trying to think now. I think that's pretty much everything. I would just say it is just brilliant, and they're very supportive. Also, actually, with the regards to personal tutors, I think that is a great thing that the university have. Like for instance, tomorrow I'll have a one-to-one meeting with the personal tutor, so one of the lecturers of my course, and she'll just check up on everything, like not even just your academics, but like how's everything else going, your mental health, and then they're just really, really supportive. If you need any extra support with anything, your personal tutor is the first kind of person you go to. So it's just great to have that person that I can ask about anything, not just university work. It's lovely.
College, that is one of the biggest things I do think, is knowing that support is there, and when you are paying that tuition fee, it does cover that support. So yeah, I hope that's a takeaway, because I definitely knew when I was looking at universities, I wasn't aware of all of the support that is available. So it's really important to be aware of that. But just from me, I just want to say a massive thank you for attending today's webinar. And just to let you know, a recording of the webinar will be emailed to you tomorrow. And I'm also going to attach some sort of key links that are linked to some of the questions that were asked earlier. So I'll include email addresses for our study abroad coordinators, PGCE staff at St Mary's here as well. And so if you are wanting to explore any of those routes further, you've got the email addresses of the correct people to contact. So it's just a massive thank you from me. Hope you found the session beneficial, and we hope to see you at St Mary's in the near future.
Yeah,
so,
thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you so much as well to Meg and Caoimhe as well for just delivering such fantastic information to you all today. So thank you.